for more Chinese STEM students deported upon arrival in the U.S. 3 reasons Chinese tourists can't return to the global travel market. Shocking submersion of Pingyuan Courtyard, 38 deaths attributed to dam discharge. 5 more CCP officials receive heavy prison sentences for persecuting Falun Gong. CCP makes nearly $9 billion annually from medical genocide, lawyer estimates. It's all covered in today's China Truths. For more Chinese STEM students deported upon arrival in the U.S. With all the tension between the U.S. and China, and worries about the CCP sneaking in, the U.S. is really on alert now. They're paying extra attention to Chinese people coming into the country, keeping a close eye on them at customs. Recently, 4 more Chinese STEM students headed to the U.S. were interrogated and deported by American authorities. On June 22, China Daily reported that these 4 students, all with STEM backgrounds and 2 of whom are involved in artificial intelligence research, were traveling to the U.S. to study and attend academic conferences. Sources revealed that officers from U.S. Customs and Border Protection, CBP, took the 4 individuals to an interrogation room for more than 10 hours, repeatedly questioning them about their personal and family circumstances, studies and internships in the U.S., CCP membership, and collaborations with the Chinese government. The report highlighted that the officers paid particular attention to their CCP membership and computer-related research backgrounds. During the questioning, 1 individual's electronic devices were confiscated, and the other 3 were deported. The U.S. authorities also denied 2 of the individuals any contact with family or friends, resulting in 1 person being out of contact with the outside world for over 30 hours. In recent years, amid ongoing U.S.-China tensions and allegations against Chinese students and scholars of intelligence theft or having CCP ties, the U.S. has increasingly heightened its alert levels, making Chinese nationals traveling to the U.S. a primary focus. Previously, many Chinese students and scholars had their visas canceled and were deported upon attempting to enter the U.S. According to a Bloomberg report in May, since the beginning of this year, over 20 Chinese students have faced prolonged interrogations upon entry into the U.S. and had their phones, computers, and other electronic devices inspected. Their student visas were canceled, and they were informed that they could not enter the U.S. for the next 5 years. These students were enrolled in prestigious U.S. universities, including Yale University, Johns Hopkins University, and the University of Virginia. 3 reasons Chinese tourists can't return to the global travel market. According to seat capacity data from Cirium, flight ticket analysis from Forward Keys, and booking situations from online travel websites, South Korea and Japan have experienced a surge in Chinese tourists following the devaluation of their currencies against the yuan. Meanwhile, Southeast Asian countries, including Malaysia and Thailand, attract visitors with visa-free entry and relatively lower costs. The resurgence of Chinese tourists is vital for the global travel sector's recovery. However, Chinese tourists are not fully returning to the global travel market due to 3 main reasons. Firstly, price is the primary consideration. The resurgence of Chinese tourists is vital for the global travel sector's recovery, yet forecasts about when their travel levels might normalize are mixed. Some analysts anticipate a full rebound by year's end, while others, like Fitch Group, suggest that spending restraints continue amid China's economic downturn. This frugality is driven by the country's ongoing real estate issues, high unemployment, and bleak economic outlook, which have led to increased saving behaviors among Chinese consumers since the pandemic began. In 2022, Chinese overseas travel fell 40% from its pre-pandemic peak in 2019, with just 87 million traveling internationally. Data from the United Nations indicates that spending by Chinese tourists last year was down by 24%, in contrast to a 14% increase by American tourists. According to Tongqing Tourism, many Chinese tourists now favor Asian destinations with no visa requirements, with Thailand emerging as a particularly popular choice. Secondly, visas are also an important factor. According to data from Cirium and Trip, the number of Chinese tourists to some European destinations is expected to grow, although most economy flights to Europe have not yet returned to pre-pandemic levels. According to airport operator ADP, the number of Chinese tourists traveling to France, the world's most visited country, has only reached 28.5% of the 2019 level. Due to escalating U.S.-China geopolitical tensions, the capacity of U.S.-China routes remains more than 80% below 2019 levels. Thirdly, geopolitical impact. According to Bloomberg, other destinations where Chinese tourist numbers are expected to surpass 2019 levels show traces of geopolitical impact. According to Cirium, Turkey, Hungary, Uzbekistan, Georgia, Saudi Arabia, Kyrgyzstan, Turkmenistan, and Kazakhstan are among the countries expected to see an increase in Chinese tourist numbers. All these are part of China's Belt and Road Initiative. Shocking submersion of Pingyuan Courtyard, 38 deaths attributed to dam discharge. On June 16, parts of Meizhou and Guangdong experienced severe torrential rains and isolated extremely heavy downpours. On the same day, official Chinese media reported that mountain floods and landslides occurred in Pingyuan County and Jiaolin County in Meizhou, resulting in 5 deaths, 15 missing, and 13 people trapped. On June 21, authorities announced that by 3 p.m. on June 21, the intense rainfall disaster in Pingyuan County, Guangdong, had resulted in 38 deaths and 2 people missing. Many netizens on Chinese social media have questioned the dam discharges that led to these significant casualties. One user noted that despite heavy rains during Qingming which were safely managed, this recent incident was directly caused by the sudden release of water from upstream reservoirs. Others echoed this sentiment, questioning the lack of official acknowledgement about the discharges and criticizing the authorities for not providing adequate warning. Simultaneously, a video circulated on Weibo reportedly from June 16, showing the sudden discharge from the Huangtian Reservoir in Huangtian Village, Pingyuan County, Guangdong. Surveillance captured the process of a courtyard in Zhangyan Village, Pingyuan County, being completely submerged. The sudden increase in water level is suspected to be due to the reservoir discharge. Reports indicate that the sudden discharge from the Huangtian Reservoir in Huangtian Village, Pingyuan County, Meizhou, Guangdong, occurred without adequate warning. Local villagers received evacuation notices only at 3 p.m., by which time the village was already submerged under 2 meters of floodwater. Earlier, it was reported that on the day of June 16, local villagers posted online for help, stating that authorities had notified of combined discharges from the Jiaolin Changtan Reservoir and the Pingyuan Yushu River, trapping many villagers who could not evacuate in time. In just 5 minutes, the water level rose by 20 centimeters, with many residents going online to seek help. 5 more CCP officials receive heavy prison sentences for persecuting Falun Gong. Between March and April 2024, 5 CCP officials from provinces such as Guizhou, Hunan, and Shandong were sentenced to long prison terms. All had been involved in the persecution of Falun Gong. The officials include Yi Pengfei, former vice chairman of the Hunan Provincial Political Consultative Conference, was sentenced to life imprisonment. He Jianba, former standing committee member of the Zhuzhou Municipal Committee, received an 11-year sentence. Xie Ping, former party secretary of Heshui County, was sentenced to 12 years and 6 months. Song Shuqi, former party secretary of Zhong District in Zhaozhuang City, was sentenced to 10 years. Zhou Chuanfu, former secretary of the Political and Legal Committee and director of the Public Security Bureau in Bijie City, was sentenced to 11 years. The Minghui website points out that although these sentences were officially due to charges such as bribery and abuse of power, in reality, they are believed to be retributions for following Jiang Zemin's orders to persecute Falun Gong. According to incomplete statistics, by 2018, over 20,000 individuals involved in the persecution had met with retribution. Zhou Chuanfu was sentenced to 11 years on April 1, 2024, for accepting bribes, and fined 1 million yuan, about $138,000, following his November 2022 arrest for bribery. During his tenure, several Falun Gong practitioners suffered persecution, such as Yang Jianjun and his wife, who were abducted in 2011, with Yang receiving a 7-year and 6-month sentence. He Jianba also received an 11-year sentence and a 1 million yuan fine, about $138,000, for bribery on April 2, 2024. During his tenure in Zhuzhou, a court harshly sentenced 7 Falun Gong practitioners in 2002 on fabricated charges. Yi Pengfei was sentenced to life imprisonment on March 25, 2024, for bribery and abuse of power. During his time in Qinzhou, he was responsible for the persecution of practitioners, including the abduction of Tan Aiju in 2011. Xia Ping was sentenced to 12 years and 6 months for bribery on March 28, 2024, and fined 800,000 yuan, about $110,000. His tenure saw the death of multiple practitioners due to persecution. On March 27, 2024, Song Shuqi was sentenced to 10 years in prison and fined 500,000 yuan for bribery. He enforced CCP persecution policies, significantly affecting practitioners like Pan Xiaobo, who was abducted and fined for suing Jiang Zemin, and others like Zhang Guangming and Gao Ping, who were abducted in 2016. CCP makes nearly $9 billion annually from medical genocide, lawyer estimates. During a Q&A session after the screening of the documentary State Organs, which reveals clandestine crimes committed by the communist regime, international human rights expert David Mattis discussed the scale of what he described as the CCP's medical genocide. He emphasized the severity of the situation, stating, "The numbers are large and horrendous," and noted that the total figure involved amounted to $8.9 billion a year. The award-winning documentary is about the perilous search for 2 youths who mysteriously disappeared in China. What their families uncovered was far more sinister: a state-sponsored industry targeting innocent, healthy citizens for their organs, which are then sold for transplantation globally. Mr. Mattis said, "We did our own calculation of volumes by going to hospital websites and adding them up. The Chinese official figures were in total 10,000 organs a year, but our calculation was 100,000 a year." He touched on how large-scale atrocities are sometimes hard to grasp, referencing the adage that a single death is a tragedy, a million deaths are a statistic. One of the poignant stories featured in the film is that of Sunny Zhou, who was detained and tortured for practicing Falun Gong. He was released briefly but tricked into returning to the police station in 2000, where he was sentenced to 3 years in a labor camp. Mr. Zhou fell ill and died the next day. His body was cremated without his family's consent. Mr. Zhou was 28, leaving behind his wife and 11-month-old daughter. His widow faced police intimidation and surveillance for protesting her husband's death, and disappeared 3 months later. The couple's deaths are shrouded in mystery to this day. Practitioners of Falun Gong are not the only prisoners of conscience victims of forced organ harvesting. Tibetans, House Christians, and Uyghurs have also been victims. Mr. Mattis has spent nearly 2 decades uncovering the Chinese regime's systematic organ harvesting from Falun Gong practitioners. His research, including the book Bloody Harvest of Falun Gong Practitioners in China, co-authored with the late Canadian MP David Kilger, was nominated for the 2010 Nobel Peace Prize. They discovered that the primary organ sources were adherents of Falun Gong, a spiritual practice based on traditional Chinese values of truthfulness, compassion, and tolerance. By 1999, its health benefits had attracted over 100 million followers, including Mr. Zhou. The popularity of Falun Gong, however, led to the jealousy of the top leader of the CCP, Jiang Zemin. Seeing it as a threat to the communist regime's totalitarian rule, the dictator launched a brutal persecution campaign against the practice. The ongoing persecution campaign involves, and is not limited to, arbitrary detention, torture, forced labor, and forced organ harvesting. The practice's emphasis on traditional moral values, hearkening to China's Buddhist and Taoist-steeped culture before the communist regime, was perceived as a threat to its atheist ideology. The documentary's state organs was screened across major cities of Australia including Canberra, Perth, and Melbourne, ending in Sydney on June 19. Raymond Zhang, director of the state organs, said that he spent 6 years on the documentary. To truthfully restore history, he overcame many difficulties to find witnesses of forced organ harvesting who were brave enough to be interviewed, including family members of victims, witnesses, and doctors involved in live organ harvesting. Mr. Zhang said, millions of families lost their loved ones to the state crime, which is comparable to the Holocaust in World War II. The difference is, it's still ongoing. Don't forget to comment in the section below to share your opinions on today's topic with us. If you find the information helpful, please share this video with a friend to watch together. This will be a great source of motivation for our team to produce more and more quality and reliable videos. And also don't forget to like and subscribe to see more interesting topics from China Truths. Thank you for tuning in.